You are listening to the Overwatch League Network, the podcast with Deadeye on all the Overwatch League news and information. The show with Tactical Visor on the statistics and analysis. Here are your hosts, Totally Drunk, Spider, and Slambo.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Overwatch League Network, the podcast with Deadeye on all the latest Overwatch League news, information, and esports analysis. I am your host, Totally Drunk, and tonight on episode 116, we're going to update you on the very latest news around the Overwatch League. We will also be taking a look at what happened at this past weekend's Houston Homestand event, which would include, for the first time this season, a Houston Outlaws win. In an actual game. I'm not talking about map win, because they already knocked that out of the way. But anyways, so before we can get into the news and introduce you to my co-hosts, let me just quickly take a moment to thank everyone who is hanging out with us tonight for our live show that includes, whatever lurkers we still had from our 200th episode of Heroes Never Die, which we recorded prior to this episode tonight. And of course, I have to thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight, as always, are both of my co-hosts. Up first, we have Nura. Nura, how has the past week been treating you, my friend?
It's been a good week. I helped my brother move in to his new apartment. That was pretty cool. And I got to watch some games. I had a dream last night about Overwatch League, and it was I woke up to it because I thought it was real. It was like Pacific games are coming back, and they're talking about which teams we're gonna play against who to like come back. And I got so excited. I woke up at like 4:30 a.m. So now I'm super exhausted, and there's no Pacific teams playing, but I think it's just one of my future mind brain kind of deals where maybe some LA games will be coming soon. That's what I'm hoping for. I think that's what I got out of last week because nothing really else happened for me.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we're also joined by Booger. Booger, you know, I keep asking you week to week how you're feeling. Outlaws gotta win, so maybe they're not 20th? Question mark?
I mean, it's great to drink from the cup of victory again. But like, there's still a long way to go, but we're taking a little outside of Overwatch League. I made breakfast for dinner today, so I'm having a great, and I'm real fired up and ready to podcast after that. So yeah, how was your week, Totem? Other than the 200th episode of Heroes Never Die, awesome! Congratulations, it was a great show.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a very randomized show today, for all the right reasons. But, you know, my weekend was great. I was at C2E2 all weekend. I took my nephew to go see The Invisible Man, which was awesome. Saturday night, I went to AEW Revolution. That was at Wintrust Arena, also in Chicago, so that was cool. Getting to see one of their pay-per-views after we went to their Dynamite taping here recently. It was a very tiring weekend, though. A lot of steps, a lot of walk-in. I mean, McCormick Place is massive, but, you know, bumping into friends there is always good to see. I ran into my neighbor, who I've known for, like, the majority of my life, because he was one of the vendors there, so getting to catch up with him was also really good. And, you know, because of that also meant I didn't really get to see too much of what happened this weekend. But I did get to see the Outlaws win. So I don't want to say that was a high moment for the weekend. But, you know, it was cool kind of just seeing that. And, you know, a little bit more of London this weekend was the other game that I caught on basically Sunday. But outside of that, all kind of just a blur, but, you know, we got some interesting things to talk about. So before we talk about what went down in Houston, in regards to what's been going on around the league, well, a couple of things. We do know that the Seoul Dynasty and the Guangzhou Charge are now back in LA. You know, some other teams are basically trying to book, like, last-minute flights to leave Seoul after that Homestead event was canceled due to the coronavirus. And hopefully we're going to be getting closer to sorting out, like, what the makeup games are going to be looking like. And sorting out, like, where exactly are they going to be played? With teams stationed in LA. Maybe they'll be on the West Coast, but, we know they won't be at the Blizzard Arena since that was basically repurposed at this point. But really, like, I think the biggest hurdle at this point is the situation with Chengdu, because they are still in China, and I don't really see an instance where that's going to change anytime soon. So that's really kind of like the wild card out of all of this, is what exactly is going to happen with them specifically. Because some of these other teams, are, getting the heck out of Dodge, because some of them, were over in Seoul for that homestand. Like, Gladiators being one of them, also who recently moved back to LA. So, right now we're still just kind of like waiting to see if the situation is going to improve, whether or not everyone's going to be able to get back into like the Burbank area, things like that. But it's good to see that teams are really making an effort to just ensuring player safety and getting back to, the stateside where the issue isn't as prominent as some of the other locations that they've been so far.
Yeah, like the teams that are still in China, they are still struggling to get visas to leave. I think that could be more difficult now than previously due to the coronavirus. So I don't know if maybe that is like compounding on top of it, that not only is it unsafe for people to go there, but it makes it harder for them to come out. And I know that there's some teams that haven't been able to make it back. I think they even mentioned some of the charge weren't able to come because they don't have their visas yet. So I don't know anything about how the visa system works, but it makes me wonder if maybe they were only approved like for the period of the homestand or something, and that they can't get here. Like all the teams in China and South Korea were going to be attending homestands in America. They had that planned out preseason, so I would assume they should have started the processes for their visas. So I think it's only a matter of time before we do see pretty much all the teams that possibly can either come back to the US or even to some locations in Europe, because it definitely seems like things might get worse before they get better for the Chinese and Korean regions. I just kind of really hope everybody makes it out safe and everything is able to take place, on a delayed schedule is fine as long as everybody's fine, safe and fine, So I think it's, just a matter of time before the rest of the teams there are coming back.
So on the part of charge, I know that Eileen is actually right now stuck in China, and they have to bring him to a remote area. They have to fly him out a remote area for 15 days before they can even get him back to the US with the team. I'm pretty sure Nero talked about that on a Vast stream. So I don't know how they're gonna get Chengdu out of there. It's gonna be a bit before I think we see that team, if not at all. I could see maybe if worse comes to worse, we'd have to play some online games. I don't see any other way we could get through that. I know Spark hasn't really talked about anything what they're gonna do, but I can see them having some of the same problems as well. This is it's getting pretty dangerous. And it's the worst part is that it's starting to hit the US. So we don't know how much this is gonna affect later on in the season. If like this is just sports wise, we're not gonna talk about like actual the dangers of coronavirus. But I feel like this could be a big problem coming into the later half of the season for sure.
Yeah, so, outside of that, we also had the announcement of what will be the first hero pool incorporated into the Overwatch League. And this was all unveiled during Sunday night's Watchpoint post-show. So, looking at what heroes are going to be out of the rotation this upcoming week and not eligible to be played And using this model, they basically banned 4 heroes for the next week in the competition. So that includes a tank hero, a support hero, as well as 2 damage dealers. So looking at the hero pool, rotated out for DPS, we have 2 hit scan DPS not eligible to be played in McCree and Widowmaker. For the tank spot, Reinhardt is out of the rotation. And then for support, we have Moira, who cannot be played this next week. So, I have to say, Reinhardt is probably the biggest situation here, where his play rate was a little bit over 87% so far in the Overwatch League, and a lot of these teams that have been faring pretty well or have at least played up, even though, some people might dog on him as a main tank. We've seen Sato really improving over the course of the past year, and his Reinhardt's actually been holding up fairly well in most of the major stat categories, so that could be a blow to them in particular. So, I'm curious to see whether or not that means that we're either going to go back to Dive, or maybe we'll get to see more Orisa for, the barrier tank situation. I don't know, but, I can't imagine, the return of Bunker with, the inklings of Dive that we have seen up to this point, and that even continued here in this past week. But, looking at Moira, Moira was barely above that threshold in regards to the play rate, so that's not a huge differential there for me. There really aren't a ton of teams that were actually playing Moira, since the majority of it has been the Lucio and the Ana combination. But seeing 2 hit scan heroes getting pulled out was definitely a surprise, and I know a lot of people have been kind of memeing just the way they went about broadcasting the lottery system. So I didn't actually get to see this segment because I still had to drive back. So I basically heard they were doing kind of a bingo. I don't even know what the hell they call those things, a rumbler, where they're just rotating it and then they're drawing something out from it.
It's like a lottery wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they put papers in, you spin it, and you get whatever comes out. I thought it was perfect. I thought, at least for me, I was like, well, at least that there's no computer manipulating it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was kind of cool. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a funny segment. I think they did well with it. I know a lot of people kind of felt like it was a joke because it was this golden little cage of just papers in it. They blindfold each other and take one out. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was cool. I thought it was a good segment for me, at least.
Okay, I have a little bit of a tinfoil hat theory here. I did not think that we would have a truly random way. I thought there's no way that Blizzard's not going to try to get their fingers in and tweak around who's going to get banned. Well, to say they were doing it totally random, they had these tickets that you opened up and they had the heroes on them. And they said they had 8 of each option.
Okay.
But before loading them in, they only showed the top one of each little stack.
They made sure to show multiple.
The
they
only
actually
one
talked about it on stream.
On was McCree, and they showed
and Ryan, and they showed a lot of them multiple. They actually made sure. They even the people were we had to make sure we did multiple.
Yeah, I still see that it's not impossible for that deck to be stacked. Not saying it is, but they definitely only showed small portions of the ones before they put them in there. And I don't know how did they. I think that the biggest thing about hero pools, we were all going to be stoked to not see May anymore.
Right.
It's you had one job, is to get rid of May.
Blame Mr. X.
That's what we got. Yeah, but I guess that means that the chances will be higher for next week.
Okay.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking that if we don't get a May ban this week, there's got to be one coming. The amount that we've seen May played has been pretty high. But one thing too this week we'll get into it when we go over our post game. We definitely seen some different compositions start to show their face a little bit. So that's pretty intriguing as well. I think when it comes to hero pools, that we're going to see a couple different strategies that teams just kind of push into. With the Widow and McCree getting banned, I think we're going to see some teams pushing down the Pharah road and the other teams pushing down like a dive, like a Winston Diva road where Reinhardt's banned. I think some teams will look, oh, we don't have Ryan, that means we go dive. And then there'll be other teams like, oh, they're going to have no Widow and no McCree, we go Pharah. So I think those are the two avenues I see teams pursuing for this week with the hero pools. But there could also be one that I'm not really expecting. On that side of things, what kind of compositions do y'all think that these hero pools are going to open up?
I mean, dive would probably be the most evident one.
Mhm.
I almost prefer the Pharah Tracer iteration of dive. But who knows? Like maybe we could actually still see double barrier with Orisa and Sigma. We haven't really been seeing a ton of Sigma at this point. But we've been seeing like Sombra Doomfist, we've been seeing Sombra Genji. But like the thing is like without Reinhardt there, does that mean that Mei is going to be kind of put on the back burner? Because there's been some pro players that are basically putting their money on, well, Mei's really not going to be seeing a ton of playtime this next week, and I don't know if it's that drastic of like a change to say like, okay, like we absolutely don't need Mei at this point. But getting back to the draw really quick. Would you guys almost prefer that they would have different weights dependent on what the actual play rate is? So, like, let's say, for instance, Reinhardt, he had 84% or whatever percentage, that he would have basically more tickets put in the machine than, say, someone that has only seen, like, 12%. That way it's not, like, an even number across the board.
Go ahead.
So for me, I think it'd be kind of cool to do tickets per percent. So you can do 8 tickets if they have like 80% win rate, like play rate. If they have 20%, you put 2 tickets. 10% 1 ticket. I think that'd be pretty cool. I honestly I think that'd be. I don't care about the whole like if they have a high like play rate. I think they should be in the lottery no matter what.
Right.
Because first of all, I don't want to see Moria. I'm kind of glad she got banned. I know like some people are like, well, Widow also got banned. That's kind of weird, but I don't mind that. I think it's one of those fair things where she did get played a lot. It's 10% a lot for the league. As much as I'd want to see Mei banned, I think that she's actually not going to be that viable. I feel like she was a very big enabler for Ryan, but right now Ryan's out of the meta. So I don't see her used a lot unless you can enable Orisa with it. With that being said, I think that a lot of like Tracer Sombra might be played instead of Tracer Sombra Dive is what I'm betting on. I think Diva's too strong for Pharah. I think this is going to bring a huge like different meta than a lot of people are thinking, which is the point of hero bans and hero pools. So I think it's a good thing overall. What about you, Booger? How do you think about the whole the percentage thing?
I almost think that maybe it should be a little higher than 10%. But if you weigh it, then you would have almost been ensuring that. I don't know. I guess that's an interesting way to look at it. I kind of suspected from the get-go that they said random, but I suspected it would be somewhat curated by the league on the league standpoint and by Blizzard for the latter standpoint. It just kind of seemed like they wanted to go hero pools so that they could be more in control instead of making the ban system with people being in control. So it's really seems conflicting to me. It seems like making it completely random out of the lottery, whether you base it on percentages or not, is kind of taking away from one of the main advantages of having hero pools, is that it could be curated, which for better or for worse, if it was curated, you could say that there'd be favoritism being shown, but at the same time, I would think there would be some sort of way for to have it maybe even have like analysts and coaches within the league vote or something like that, to have it more like tailored towards changing the meta like what they wanted, which with these picks I definitely think they will, because McCree and Reinhardt being out are like some of the most played characters. So this week that really happened. But imagine if this week they would have pulled, like, I think Winston was barely in there, Moria was barely in there, and Widowmaker was barely in there. So just a couple little picks different, and it could have barely changed what people were playing. So yeah, like I think weighing it is an option, but I also, like, I'm not against just having the league curate what the bans are going to be. Like, I think that would lead to an interesting way for things to be changing.
I feel like at the end of the day, though, we're just gonna have to keep an eye on how much of the perceived meta picks are actually gonna get removed week to week. Because, I mean, looking at the first pool, it was basically 50%. Or, you know, major implications, as opposed to, you know, stuff that's more minor, or, you know, maybe more tailor suited to certain teams, or, you know, team strengths, things like that. So we'll have to see moving forward whether or not that's going to be kind of like even keel over the course of multiple weeks, or if there will be a front-loaded week where it is a lot of meta picks as opposed to more situational heroes. So I mean, I really feel like just after 1 week, it's gonna be too hard to tell. But you know, if we have more instances where, say, you know, 3 heroes that are only like slightly above 10% are getting pulled, maybe then we revisit the discussion of holding different weights based on pick rates at that point. But, you know, for the most part, it technically should be kind of like a 50-50 split on a week-to-week basis in that regard. Now, speaking of hero pools, something that caught a lot of attention here recently was a tweet that was sent from the Overwatch Path to Pro Twitter account at OWPathToPro, who tweeted, haha, wouldn't it be funny if we took Reinhardt away? Haha, just kidding, unless... and then they said, looking forward to our contenders teams using this hero pool in their matches starting March 9th on youtube.com/Overwatch Contenders. Okay, so Path to Pro and its meta is going to be dictated by what's being played in the Overwatch League. I don't know how I feel about this, because there are definitely regions in contenders that kind of do things their own way. Kind of reminiscent of what we saw in, say, like week 1 of the Overwatch League, where we actually got to see all these different flavors coming into the fold, entering the mix, where there wasn't just one go-to meta. Like, it was just people just running what they thought was the best at that given time. And sure, that's kind of changed a little bit since then. But I don't know how I feel about them using the same hero pool, especially when you factor in, 1, the Overwatch League changes on a week-to-week basis, and Contenders kind of has like a bi-weekly schedule now, and that kind of throws things for a loop too, where like they have like trials, and the next week they have, you know, Contenders. And it just like keeps kind of like alternating. So like when I saw this, I was very confused. So I don't know how you guys are feeling about this, but this one kind of threw me for a loop, where I don't necessarily think that this is only done to like bridge the gap, but it's just it's weird because you're not always the two, you know, they're linked, but they're their own entities, and I don't see why they just wouldn't do their own lottery for contenders. Why would it have to be the same as the Overwatch League?
I'll start with this one. I think one of the biggest parts for me is I'd like them to have the same hero pools for the same reason of they do actually scrim each other all the time. For the most part, they really do scrim each other. So if they were all on different hero pools, it'd make a really, really awkward scrim time for both of them. That's the sole reason why I kind of like that they have the same hero pools. It would have been cool to see some kind of contenders hero pool, but then you have to also think about like I think O Division also is using it. I'm not sure about that. I'm not saying they are, but I think there's a factor like that as well. It also makes it just kind of easier. Like our contenders are gonna have to make a post about it every week as well. But now they just all go up to go to the post show on Sunday and you can just watch to see what they need to play the next week. But I think that's the sole reason why they did it for sure.
Yeah, I think it's good to have them match. I think the only options that I would think that would make sense is to either use the same as Overwatch League or use the same as the ladder. And I think using the same one as Overwatch League is probably a better choice. I never even thought about because they scrim each other. That's a really good point too. But because a lot of times strategies develop between the different leagues. Like GOATs, the 3-3 meta come from a contenders team. So it makes sense that they're going to be playing in a similar way so that you have more places to scout and look and come up with what you're going to work with the current hero pools. And like if they do have different things going on in different contenders regions that is like vastly different in the meta from the Overwatch League, then those teams playing off meta, being more flexible, being more creative will get rewarded, and that seems like a good thing. Like a more rewarding teams for the creativity. I'm totally for that, and I think that just kind of is a pretty common sense. Like I wouldn't assume that the Path to Pro would set their complete own hero pools. I would assume they would either mirror Overwatch League or the latter, and I think in this case that mirroring the Overwatch League is definitely the go-to move for the Path to Pro scene.
I know there's also been a lot of movement in regards to them kind of bringing all of the contender stuff over to the Overwatch League website. So it really gets you thinking, like, are they actually going to be pushing more Path to Pro stuff moving forward now that everything's going to be in a central location? And on that note, does that also mean that we'll have a Contenders API as well for like the Stats Lab?
I think one of the best things they could do for Contenders is to showcase some matches at one of the homestands, like have it go on early before a lot of people get there. Like when they have UFC and boxing fights and stuff, they have early rounds and prelims that aren't the main event, and to toss some Contenders in there, not only would it get the people's eyes on them, it gets the players on the stage. Like that should be like one of their goals for the next season, in my opinion.
The only downside to that is a lot to ask for viewers at the venue.
Yeah, but if you even watch like some fights and stuff, when you get into the early prelims, when it pans across the crowd, there's not a lot of people there. Like they don't have to be playing to a full stadium. Like you work up to that when you get on an Overwatch League team. Like if they're renting out the venues or not, they might as well put it into there. Like, yeah, it could make for very long days, but there are diehard fans that would be about it. Like if I had a ticket to a homestand, I'd watch every single bit that was being played, like that I could possibly do, you know? So just to have it there would just be huge.
I know with the COD League, they have tournaments all the time at the homestands for Tier 2. I don't think Overwatch might be a little bit harder for that because it's more global than COD League for sure. But overall, it's really well received, and they're big tournaments. They're not like, I think they have 3 or 4 2,500,000 or 2005 well 20 whatever. They have a lot of money
Numbers.
on these tournaments. They have numbers. I can't think of numbers right now, but they're huge. They're a big deal. I don't think Overwatch can do that for the sole reason of a lot of teams are off location. They're not really like together as much as COD League. But I would love to see something more like what they did with Overwatch World Cup, I think 2018, where they brought in the championships to play during the World Cup, their homestands basically. Because I think I remember just watching the LAN of, it was Fusion University against like XL2, and just watch Fusion University destroy them, and then just coming up, yeah, it was easy. Like we just played Broken Heroes. It's over. It was probably it was my favorite thing. It's what I remember out of the whole the group stages of that World Cup for sure.
Looking at some recent team news, we also got an update from the Boston Uprising, who announced the departure of Munchkin. So I know, like, there's been an update in regards to where exactly Munchkin has ended up, but this is someone who had joined the Uprising this past November. He played in one of the Uprising's matches this season when he opened against the New York Excelsior in this case. Prior to that, he was with the Seoul Dynasty for the other 2 seasons within the Overwatch League, and then, parted ways with the Dynasty prior to Stage 4 of that 2019 season. So, looking at this, like, someone who's been on, journeyed from, like, basically Apex, so he played in Korea. He moved over to EU Contenders when he was on Laser Kittens before joining the Overwatch League, where he played for 2 different teams. And, there's been a team out there who's been making a ton of moves, like trying to, like, snatch up former Overwatch League pros, that being Lucky Future. And, they've had quite a few names appearing, like Dako's on the team, Guido. Now you got Munchkin. I'm trying to think if there was anyone else. Let me pull up their Liquipedia really quick. Nuss, former, London Spitfire main support, also on this team. So there's a lot of, like, notable names, and this is a Contenders Trials team for China, if I'm not mistaken, is where LFZ is based. And this is an all-Korean squad, so I'm really anxious to see how this team is going to fare. But, there's been instances where, former Overwatch League pros go from, Tier 1 to Tier 2, and then we don't really hear from them again. Do you guys feel like this is, like, maybe a redemption arc for these players to maybe make their way back up, knowing that they're still going to have to go through trials in order to play in Contenders at this point?
Yeah, I think it's possible. It's probably a little bit harder road, but it's what really stands out to me is that he wasn't on the team very long.
Mm-hmm.
Like not very long at all. So I wonder if he had like a month-to-month contract or something, or if Lucky Future's coming in with like deep pockets trying to buy him out. But I definitely think that the style of team that Boston is, they seem to always be looking for the profit. And I don't mean the player, I mean how to make the money. And if we learned one thing from the past 2 weeks, is that Boston's going to make some money in Jerry jersey sales.
Mm-hmm.
So with someone like that who just got that popularity, they come out and perform. I think Munchkin's outlook of getting much stage time might have been a little grim, and he might I believe this is not. There's been somebody else did that earlier this year where they went Tier 2 when they could have stayed on an Overwatch League team, just like for the love of the competition.
Well, there is time.
And that's who I was thinking of. I couldn't think of the name. Yeah, and I think that it's definitely not the easy road, but it's very respectable to try to earn a way back into playtime. So, and Munchkin might have got to Boston and been like, oh man, what am I doing here? So who's to say? But it is very interesting to see a trials team coming up with that much former Overwatch League talent, and it makes me question how deep their pockets are, and if that's what's drawing it in, or if it's players who were on teams aren't now and decided to come together to really earn their way back. Either way, it's very interesting to see how this story plays out.
I think, first of all, I think Lucky Future said they're going to move over to Korean Contenders trials. Okay. I think they're no longer in Chinese Contenders. Also, I think my theory about the whole Munchkin situation is that he was promised a starting position, and then I think Jerry actually beat him out. And so he said, okay, well, I want to get a starting, I want to be able to play. And so they parted way mutually. Classic Boston, 1 year, one player leaves for a certain reason. It's This is fine for me. I think Munchkin just got on a better team. I think the Lucky Future squad is actually really stacked. I know they have Daco, and I think that should say enough. Daco, Guido, Munchkin sounds like a tremendous trio. I would be scared of that in the Overwatch League. Well, Guido not really, but anyway, for all that being said, I think that this was a good move for Munchkin overall. If he wants to continue his career, I don't think sitting on the bench of Boston has done anyone favors. So hopefully we get to see him in the Overwatch League stage again.
Absolutely. So, looking back at this past weekend, we had the Houston homestand event. So, just briefly recapping what we saw over Saturday and Sunday. On Saturday, we saw the New York Excelsior sweep the Florida Mayhem 3-0. Followed by Atlanta Reign making their 2020 debut, where they defeated Toronto Defiant 3-0. And then London and Houston, London came off to a hot start, and then Houston brought it back, forcing the map 5. But it was London taking that one 3-2. I'll definitely have to talk to Booger about the main tank situation because I didn't actually get to see that match. So then on Sunday, we actually had 4 games. So we saw the Philadelphia Fusion fly out to Houston to sweep the Boston Uprising 3-0. The banter on Twitter was hilarious. A lot of the Fusion players have been trolling one another, which I absolutely love to see. And some of them were like, "Really, we flew out for this?" That's a feels bad, man, for Boston on that note. After that, we saw the Paris Eternal defeat Atlanta Reign 3-1. The London Spitfire picked up another Map 5 win, this time against the Florida Mayhem, and then Houston closed out the weekend with a win over the Toronto Defiant 3-1. All right, so, looking back at Saturday, I heard, New York came out and made a couple of changes to their lineup. They ended up running Libero, who we hadn't really seen. Nene was back in the rotation, so they benched Sabiolbi, they benched Who Are You, who definitely had his fair share of struggles. I think SBB, for the most part, was adequate enough for McCree. He was maybe middle of the pack in most situations, but I honestly felt like we didn't really see the full potential out of that DPS rotation as of yet, and with hero pools getting implemented, it just made sense that, they were basically dusting off Libero at this point to get him warmed up for when he's definitely going to be used to his fullest potential, leading into this upcoming, weekends ahead.
Yeah, I definitely want to take a second here and talk about how I had Philly Fusion criminally underrated this season. At the beginning of the preseason, I kind of seen them start playing and avoided talking about it for a while, but I think it's at a point now where I need to say I don't at all doubt the talent on that team at all anymore. The only thing I could ever imagine happening is, we saw Poco say, "I flew out to watch this."
Mm-hmm.
So it's only a matter of time before some of their stacked positions start wanting to play on different teams. I don't think that anybody from Philly is going to take it as far as going to contenders. But when do they start asking to get traded or asking for the starting role and build that rift within the team? Is that a possibility? Do they have a possibility to collapse? And that's kind of was what I was thinking when I decided to put them that low, is more of that kind of thing. And I think it's kind of fair to say I was pretty far off there. But sometimes I think you got to take a chance. And you got to be the only one taking that chance, so you can be the only one being like, "Look, I said so." And I don't get to do that, so I need to definitely say that I was way wrong about that. And here's another thing I'd like to highlight about this whole weekend is we seen a little bit more teams opting to veer away from that May McCree comp. Like there was I know on Saturday we seen a fair amount of dive. Generally that Sombra Doomfist seems to be a relatively preferred, but we seen it come out in the Atlanta Toronto game and in the London Houston game, which was a true heartbreaker for me. Like I honestly thought Houston was going to pull it out, but I definitely think that that's one of the biggest things this weekend is that we were starting to see the meta evolve a little bit, and especially for different maps, we're seeing less of the May McCree and more teams venturing away from that. And I thought that was a very interesting takeaway from these games this weekend.
Yeah, I'm glad that the Philly Fusion versus Boston Uprising game finally let you realize that Fusion was good.
It compounded. It is big.
Yeah, of course.
I should have said that last week.
We grade everyone based off of how quickly they stomp Boston.
Smart. Yeah, I understand. It's a compound of things. It's just funny. Yeah. I just started laughing because I saw the Boston who they played. So for me, I think one of the biggest things we can come out of this week was Paris Eternal is a legit team. Defeating Atlanta Reign. Are you kidding me? I thought Atlanta Reign was gonna come and stomp every team in this. It looked like they just had a better meta, and I don't think Atlanta was ready for them. Atlanta's playing Baby Bay, by the way. As much as I do think Baby Bay is a really skilled player, they picked up 2 amazing hit scans that they could have put in for this, and they decided to go with Baby Bay. I wonder if it's some kind of eternal problem with them, or is it just like they thought that they could destroy these 2 teams, so like we're gonna put in one of our favorites.
The Eternal was the problem for them. Let's be real.
Oh yeah. Eternal problem.
Against Toronto, Baby Bay was popping off. Like he looked on fire on Saturday. So like I was not questioning the decision to play him at all after Saturday's game. I think that definitely seeing them against Paris really, like, it has brought the question of we kind of think that the Atlanta was a little bit better than they might be, or is Paris just that good? Like I really think that Paris might have been one of the most underrated teams overall this season. Seeing them come in and they like when some of the teams they beat, you think, oh okay, they pulled that off, but coming out against Atlanta and looking good, like I think that flashback to one of the Fact or Fictions from a couple episodes ago, that XZI really is building his case for Rookie of the Year. Like I don't think that by any means, if they held that this early in the season, we would call him that, but he's literally insane. Like will be complete pop off and like is pretty much the carry for Paris. And we're told that when Sparkle comes in, he's just as good or better. Like this is Paris is just continually impressive. Like every time I see them play, I'm very impressed.
Yeah, they're basically further along than a lot of us estimated than we would have thought at this given point. But speaking of Atlanta, I do want to shout out the fact that they kept the tradition of alive of them coming out with the Torbjorn. I love to see it. Just because, throwback to the friend doing it on control. We got to see it again this time with Baby Bay. And, it's just not something we get to see that often. And
it worked.
Against Dive, it worked great. So maybe that's a blueprint for something that we could potentially see for this upcoming weekend, which is another Washington homestand event. So, I'm just curious to see if that tour pick is going to be more consistent moving forward, or if it's just going to be a one-off specific to the Atlanta Reign. But I have to say, going in on paper, seeing how the Defiant and Eternal have both played, both of those games felt like trap games. No matter, how strong you felt Atlanta is, or where you want to put Toronto or Paris, both of those teams have basically been kind of like in discussion of like, okay, like we need to see a litmus test for these teams because a lot of people have like maybe moved him up even in the top 10, maybe like your 7th through 10th overall. And we just didn't quite know, but we needed to see them face one of the more powerhouse teams in order to see where exactly we would place them. And it was a very like polarizing performance from Atlanta. Atlanta really responded well to Defiant Dive. But then Eternal came in and they were hyper aggressive against Atlanta, and Atlanta just couldn't really deal with that, which is weird to say because Atlanta's always kind of been the aggressor in a lot of situations throughout their Overwatch League career. So I thought it was interesting to see kind of like that tide turned against them where they were basically getting bullied in that series against Paris. So, hats off to Paris for coming in and really showcasing that they are among the elite teams. And I can't wait to see them going up against someone like, Philly or seeing how well they could do against New York. Knowing New York has had their fair struggles, but, with hero pools now, like, maybe we'll see New York at their best at this point. And I can't wait to see how these teams are going to fare moving forward. They're definitely teams that we were so far off on. And, sometimes that's just the way that things roll. And, Florida's looked good in spots and terrible in others. And then you have London who keep pulling out wins. Like, I love to see that, primarily because, one, it benefits me against Edinar in our Lord bet. But two, just the fact that, everyone was just dogging on London from the get-go. So to see them pulling out wins... I mean, the Florida win definitely spoke more to me than a win over the Outlaws, knowing that the Outlaws have had their fair share of struggles. But, London's been fighting tooth and nail for these wins, and they're coming out ahead, which is just awesome to see for a team that we just didn't have such high expectations for, knowing the amount of, like, rookie, players they had coming into the season.
Yeah, I think that each game London plays, JMac has looked a little bit better and a little bit better to the point where at the first time we saw London, we thought, hey, JMac's kind of the weak point. He's going to lose them some games here. So this weekend, we've seen him actually perform well. So I wonder how much of that early opinions we had of him was kind of like a remnant of stage fright going on with him, and that he had to get over that, because that's some real stuff to deal with. Like, go from playing video games in your bedroom or office to on a stage in front of thousands of people. Like, that's a learned skill that you don't really have a way to practice. So it's understandable for a newer player to the league like that to take a second to get their feet going. So yeah, like London definitely are nearing our expectation for how many wins we thought they'd get all year already. So they definitely, and Glister's insane too. I was just talking about JMac, but that's because that's where they looked weak. Glister kind of hasn't really looked weak since he's been in the Overwatch League.
Well,
so
that first week he started kind of slow, but he's definitely come back to form since then.
Yeah, there's definitely been improvements there, but at the same time, he wasn't like, oh man, what's he doing? He's gonna get them in so much trouble this year. Like, I think a lot of us were really down with JMac. So, and also just be able to see that London has, with their off tank position with Benar and Cleston, they've been rotating them somewhat, like, not, I wouldn't say randomly like every other map like some teams do, but like they brought Cleston in last week for like an entire game, and this week they brought him in just for a map 5, which probably has something to do with which lineups they practice on for certain maps. But at the same time, to come in cold into map 5 and to still perform, like, that really does show that they have that versatility to bounce around in that position there. So yeah, even like some of the players that we thought for London, like Bernard, who looked particularly strong, he's got a pretty close to equal backup. So London definitely has some higher potential than what we expected this year. And a lot of that kind of rides on the back of Glister and that off tank position. Bernard and Cleston both pop off. So I look forward to seeing how London's going to do throughout the season. Like, are they going to continue to get stronger, or are they just, this week they went 2-0 against the Outlaws and the Mayhem. So we thought the Mayhem were pretty good coming into this season, and it's definitely the best Mayhem that we've seen in the Overwatch League. But, New York, they really dunked on them, and I think that might have had them a little shook in the head. Like, the way New York played, the way it was pretty tough coming in with their new lineup. It leads me to question if were they really just trying to get Who Are You some stage time early in the year, and is SBB that perfect pick to put in with a young player? Like, we seen in the playoffs last year, the kind of support that he was giving to Flower. Is he like that kind of leader that is going to go on stage with some of the younger players to be like that? I don't know the word to put with it. I guess like that rock that knows what the league is like, to be that leader. And I think that almost like a on stage like coach kind of thing. Like, I think that that's like very vital, because he can perform, but he's also going to be there for some of the players that are new to learning what it's like to play in front of crowds like that. So yeah, New York is definitely looking like a force to stay with too.
Right. All I have to say is, for me, I think Paris Turner looks really good right now. There is a thing called Rhine bans and 2 main tanks. I'm questioning on any other main tank other than Rhine. Same thing with J-Mac. I think he's got a pretty good Rhine and a pretty good Orisa. Questionable main tank options. Maybe even Toronto Defiant might look better in a meta where Ryan isn't there. I think that there's going to be a lot of more shakeups coming in with hero pools. That even though these teams might look good in this meta, they've been practicing this meta for months now, and seeing a switch with it could actually change a lot. So as high as I am on Paris with this meta, I could also see them falling back down to where we might thought they were, as well as some other teams in the league. This is just the beginning of the Overwatch League for me. So that's all I really have to say about these games. As high as I am about some of these teams, it could really change later.
Yeah, and you got to look. Paris got a tough schedule coming up this next week, or at least part of it's pretty tough.
All right,
you
well,
never know though.
Or do we?
I know.
Well, anyways, so Washington has their second of what would be 5 homestand events this upcoming weekend. So looking at the weekend ahead, on Saturday, we start things off at 12 p.m. Pacific time. We have the Toronto Defiant going up against the Florida Mayhem. Basically, both coming off of losses on, this past Sunday. That would be followed by, at 2 p.m. Pacific time, Paris Eternal versus the Houston Outlaws. And then to close out Saturday, we got the Boston Uprising versus Washington Justice. So, soft match, I would say, for Washington in that regard. Their next match is going to be pretty interesting, I'd say. So moving into Sunday, again, starting at 12 p.m. Pacific time, we got the Paris Eternal versus the Philadelphia Fusion. Like the sound of that one. Followed by Atlanta Reign versus Boston Uprising. And then to close things out, we got the Washington Justice versus the New York Excelsior. I'll be honest, like, when I was looking on the Overwatch League site, their matches were listed wrong for Sunday.
Oh.
I don't know if they fixed that, but like when I was doing the notes, I was like, that doesn't look right. And then I went to over.gg to clarify, and sure enough, they had it listed correctly.
What was wrong?
They had the wrong times listed.
Oh,
They
okay.
had the New York Washington flipped with Boston Atlanta. So on the site it says that ATL Boston is on last when that's not the case.
Hmm.
So I thought that was kind of interesting. So, looking at this, again, another great test for Paris Eternal going up against Philadelphia Fusion on Sunday. There's been a lot of hype behind the Fusion this year being a super team, and Eternal has definitely been playing up. So, looking at how Paris has done, like, how good of a shot do you feel that the Eternal have to potentially upset Philadelphia this weekend, knowing that, Eternal will be playing 2 games as opposed to the Fusion, who are just coming in for this specific match?
I actually think that Paris might flop in a new meta. I think XEI, although he's really strong, I don't know how fit without a pre in his hands. Maybe they'll play more. I know they're gonna play Sim and stuff, but I don't know how far they're gonna go. Are they gonna put in soon for maybe a tracer kind of dive kind of deal? I just the huge question of Ben Best and Nosemite playing main tank. It's still a huge question to me because I think Ben Best is actually really good Reinhardt. I have question marks in every other position at main tank for him, and Nosemite has not impressed me in the league like thus far. Like I maybe a good Orisa. I could see a Orisa coming in for them, and maybe they can pull out. But I think Houston's going to throw some weird swings for them, and I don't think Philly has any different ideas. I think Philly's just going to pound them with Sado Winston. I don't see Paris going that far. Just personally for me, unless the main tanks want to surprise me again.
Yeah, I definitely think that Philly gets the edge for sure, but I don't think that it's impossible for Paris to pull out an upset, which would be an upset. When it comes to the hero bands, that's definitely a big factor into this game because like you mentioned, XZ has been incredible on the McCree, and to see this is going to be a test to see like he'll get a test run against the Outlaws the day before going up against Carpe, so they'll get to test out what kind of compositions they're going to be trying. When it comes to dive, I don't really think, or I know we're all predicting quite a bit of dive, but I don't really know if that high level McCree skill is going to transfer over to being a really good tracer or a Sombra. That's but when it comes to the biggest question for me for this game with the Philly Fusion is, are they going to play Chipsa? It's starting to look like a Doomfist meta. Like this week looks like there's going to be quite a bit of Doomfist playing. So do they actually play him, or do they have IV or EQO come in on Doomfist? Like if we see maps played this weekend where Philly runs Doomfist for entire map and it's not Chipsa, I don't know if we're gonna see him in the Overwatch League stage this season. So we'll get that might be a bit of an exaggeration, but we'll get an answer there. Fingers crossed we'll see some absolute craziness going on with them, and maybe he can be the second best Doomfist in the league after Blase.
Well, if they were facing Boston, I'd say there would be a higher probability of Chipsa coming in. Against Paris, I don't see it.
Yeah. I just noticed with the picks, it definitely seems like the Doomfist could be a large part of this week's hero pool meta. I mean, we were seeing it a little bit while McCree was still prevalent. So now you got no flashbangs to worry about for the Doomfist, and without the that's another point. Without the Reinhardt, is the Maze going to be as prevalent? So no May, no McCree. It's starting to look like a playground for Doomfist, which one of the things with this week's hero pools, I think that they kind of help out Houston a little bit because Muma is definitely not the strongest on the Reinhardt. This past week on Saturday, he showed up some Reinhardt with like little glimpses of, hey, not bad. But when you get him onto the Winston, you get him onto the Wrecking Ball, that's when the rest of the team starts to succeed. So with this dive strategy, we seen Houston do it last week and win their first game. We seen Toronto pulling it out the previous week and pushing Philly to map 5. So I definitely think throughout this Washington homestand, we will probably see quite a bit of Doomfist, which kind of makes me sad that I don't want his rates to get too high because I don't want to see that getting banned. It's absolutely a pleasure to watch Overwatch League level Doomfist. I don't know what matches do y'all have your eyes on this weekend, particularly?
For me, my main match is probably the Paris Fusion, but I'm actually looking really forward to the Toronto Viant Florida Mayhem match. These are two teams that just came off of horrific losses against teams they probably should have won against, and they're looking to bounce back. I think Florida might have a hard time against Toronto Defiance DPS and tanks, but for me, it's still a question mark. I can never gauge of how good they are. I think that same with London. I think London's also there for me, but Florida, Karayan's looking pretty good. Are they going to put in Fate if it's going to be Winston meta? I don't know. The team looks meh. Oh yeah, that they're not bad at these positions. I don't think any of them are just other than Chris. I don't like Chris. I think they could do better without a main support named Chris. But with that being said, I think Toronto could actually come back and look strong again after their faults. And that's what I'm looking forward to. If it's going to be a close game, that's going to be dope. But I'm really looking for a dominant fashion from one of these teams to prove that we're at least going to be good at something. It's going to be hero pools.
Yeah, those are both two teams I expected to be picking up wins this past weekend. At least one or two of them wins each. And they both went 0-2 over the weekend. So that definitely is going to see the challenge of the bounce back there. Who's going to get the rebound and come back?
Yeah, for me, I want to see how Jerry's gonna do this week, knowing that we're really not gonna see Hitskin. Is he still gonna be coming in? Because obviously Color Hex has been, their go-to. Well, I mean, Munchkin is gone at this point, so it basically has to be Jerry getting slotted in, and that's someone who has been outpacing Color Hex. He has 30 more final blows compared to Color Hex, so it's been pretty one-sided, even though Color Hex has been involved in more eliminations, and that's primarily just because he's been in for 30 more minutes in that regard. But there's still a ton of questions, especially at main tank. Atlanta, kind of surprised us in regards to what tanks they were running. They kind of swapped things up. Hawk didn't play the first series, and then he came in for the second one, so we got to see what that situation is. The main tanks have kind of just been flip-flopping with Boston. Boston seems to be more more likely to run Axiom here as of late, so we'll see if that's going to continue now that Reinhardt is out of the rotation this week. But for me, I'm looking forward to Justice Excelsior to close out the weekend. Excelsior really looked like they were at their final form this past weekend. Justice have been very competitive against a lot of teams so far, but we haven't really seen them really dominate any top teams. They've been doing well against these teams that we didn't expect too much of, and this is going to be a really great test for them. So, is Stratus gonna, just stick with the May? How's Ellie Vote going to do in a pure dive situation? Because if we are going to see a lot of dive, whether it's Tracer Genji or, Sombra, Doomfist for the Hackfist iterations, Is Zach just going to see the rise of more Sombra? Will we get to see more Brigida entering the fold this weekend? Would that also mean that Houston decides to run Lucio Brig again? There's so many questions that are going to come into play this weekend, and I'm looking forward to it, but I really feel like the Eternal Fusion game's probably going to be the one that most eyes are going to be on outside of Justice Excelsior. So, I just hope for Washington it's not going to be a case of them dropping both sets at home again. Like, I don't really see an instance where Boston will pick up the win there. Because Boston does not have an easy schedule this weekend. That's a really tough two-set game to really prepare for, knowing that they are facing the Justice and then the Atlanta Reign. And it makes me laugh knowing well, if Atlanta's gonna be throwing this off-kilter stuff and with the Torbjorn and everything, I can't imagine a situation where Torb is gonna be above 10% play rate. I feel like that's gonna be a tool that they're gonna have in their back pocket the vast majority, if not the entirety of the season.
That is very true.
I actually think that Torb's gonna have above 10% rate. Is that crazy? Is that crazy that I think Torb's actually really strong, especially against Doomfist and other people like that and in dive situations? I could see Torb being a really good counter to a lot of dive situations. I know I've been watching a lot of pros play, and a lot of them have been picking up Torb it's a strong amount, as well as Sombra. And so I really could see that this was just maybe Atlanta was actually planning more ahead into hero pools and starting to bring up this Torb play. So I could really see that maybe we'll see more Torb than we thought. I think he's actually stronger than a lot of people think.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't take the jump to say we'll see him over 10%, because you also have to think that this is going for 2 weeks is the percentages. So last week it was very low. We actually did see Houston had Blase on the Torb for a short span on Temple of Anubis, I believe, on Saturday. If not, it was last week. So it is definitely that counter dive idea that Torb can counter it. So it's not crazy to think that there will definitely be an uptick. I really, really don't want to see a scenario where Torb's out of the hero pools. That would not be too pleasing, because that would just be who would have thought kind of such scenario. But one thing I want to highlight this weekend about the Justice, this is Washington's homestand, and they really did come out with a weaker start than a lot of people predicted this year. I know I was relatively high on them. I think Totem, you were one of the people that were pretty low on them. And it seems like you were, I don't want to say you were correct just yet, but it definitely is not the Washington Justice that we thought would pick up where they left off from stage 4 last season. And I think that with this being their homestand and them having this game against Boston to warm up, I don't want to say it like that, because it's kind of sounds disrespectful to Boston, but Boston is kind of a warm-up game for Washington this week. And if they get their legs under them, absolutely own Boston, get the crowd stoked, some of that energy is going to carry over to the next day. So I think if the Justice want to upset New York XL, especially the new version of New York we seen play against Florida this past weekend, if they want to beat them, I think it's absolutely vital for their mental to come in and just boom Boston. They need to beat Boston so bad that their players end up in the highlights for a desk slam beat of Boston. They really need to stick it to them. And I think that would get the momentum to really give them a chance against New York. I also think that this past weekend's Houston homestand kind of showcased that the seventh man in the crowd can do something for a team. And like that Washington New York game. That definitely seems like New York's got the edge, but I'm a fan of the underdog story. So I'm really looking forward to see if Washington can come out with a big 2-0. That would absolutely look great and kind of begin to erase the like slower start they had this year. When I think 2-0 that puts them at 3-3. That actually does kind of even out their little bit of slow start. So I'd like to see that for the Justice.
Yeah, who would think at this point that the Uprising would have a higher win rate than the Washington Justice?
Or London have a higher win rate than Justice.
Than both, yeah. This is also
Yeah.
true. Because London are
Absolutely
3 and
insane.
2 right now. That's crazy to think about.
Yeah, pure stunner. Like preseason power rankings out the window, total joke. Yeah, but
So for me in Washington, my main worry for them is definitely their player. They only have 8 players, and one of them's not even here yet. And with coming into hero pools, I feel like you need to have some variation coming in. I think Roar's gonna be a fine Winston, and he's played Orisa before, and I think they're gonna get lucky that way. But if if they don't get their players fast, I don't know how well Tuba or Stratus is gonna do in the meta. I don't know how. I just don't think they can carry the way that Corey might need them to when he's not on McCree. He can play Hanzo maybe this time, but it's just this team. I know they're looking for players. I've heard a lot of things talking about how they're looking for new players. They needed them to come fast. They definitely need some new players soon. Just reinvigorate them. Be like, hey, look, we're trying. They never had a lack of trying to get new players, trying to get better. I just wanted them to do it faster because I don't know how well their DPS is going to stack up to other teams when it's not a main meta. So that's all I'm hoping for Washington. That's all I really wanted to say right now. We can continue now.
I think the misconception about Washington Justice and Stratus is that he's only good at May, because we've definitely seen some of his pop off come in the form of Doomfist plays. So I think that Stratus kind of is known for the May, but I think that he's got a little bit more there than we thought, and I think he's kind of been quietly very like, even though the team's in a slump, he's kind of quietly been consistent in a way. And I don't know if their problems would be in the DPS line, and I definitely see the Justice struggling more with their tank line. Like that definitely, to me, some of their losses seem to be Roar being in the wrong places and things of that nature. I think that it is a question for with the hero pools we have this week of what Corey's going to be on. And if this literally, like, is there going to be weeks when they run Stratus and Tuba, which it seems like when you say that, it doesn't seem like a good idea, but we've kind of seen Corey be like absolutely incredible with the Hanzo and with the Widowmaker and the McCree. And if a lot of teams are running dive, you're not really going to want a Hanzo on your team. Like he can do a little bit, but I feel like, we're really going to see Corey have to showcase his ability and some of the other skills that he could have that maybe we just haven't seen yet. For the love of God, keep him off Zarya. But if we stay away from that, I think that there's potential for him to have something in his pocket that maybe we just haven't seen, that he hasn't needed, because the better choice is his Hanzo or his Widowmaker so far has always been the better choice. But yeah, like I really think that the hero pools is going to let players showcase some of their skills that haven't been in the forefront. And yeah, I think that he's definitely one that's going to need to be showcasing those unseen skills this week.
Yeah, and with 2 hitscan heroes being out of the rotation, it makes me think, well, For someone that maybe hasn't been as consistent on McCree or Widow, if those type of players are going to be able to find a rhythm on, say, Tracer or Sombra, to kind of get their feet back underneath them, it's going to be something interesting to just keep an eye on as we progress. So I'm just curious to see like what the breakdown is going to be between dive versus um anti-dive setups, which we could see with Torb or Sombra or Brigitte in this case as well. So it's gonna be an interesting weekend. We'll get our first look at hero pools within the Overwatch League. We'll see if Washington can buck the trend of homestand teams, but Houston kind of already did that this past weekend where they actually split. That was the first time we got to see that. But in Washington's case, hopefully they'll come out with a win. 2 seems like a bit of a stretch, but we're gonna have to wait and see on that front. So just looking forward to the games this week. Some interesting ones. Some that might have some people be sleeping on them, like Defiant Mayhem in particular. Just knowing that these 2 teams have kind of been, we've seen great, we've seen bad. So I honestly don't know who I'm gonna favor in that particular match. But I think that pretty much wraps it up for tonight. Unless you guys have anything else on that note.
No, I think we covered quite a bit.
All right, so let's go ahead and let's close out shop for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, be sure to head over to iTunes and write us a review. Let us know how we're doing and whether or not you'd like to see us incorporate anything else into the show. We're always looking to improve the listening experience for you. If you would like to find additional Overwatch-related content, we do have our podcast directory, that being Overwatch Recall. And then every Sunday or Monday, we do the Weekly Recall, which has a list of all the prior week's episodes across the podcast scene for Overwatch. So to keep up to date with that, be sure to follow Recall on Twitter at OWRecall. Now, of course, outside of that, you guys can support our show directly. So, Anura, why don't you go ahead and let our listeners know how they can do that?
If you'd like to show more additional support to our network of Overwatch shows, consider pledging via Patreon. Tiers start at just $1 a month. More information can be found at patreon.com/OWL network. You too can join the likes of our master and above patrons, Blazing Bob, Brendan, Josabal, Owl, Kasha, and Agent Life 23, and helping our network grow. And Booger, how could you contact the show?
If you want to reach the show, you can send an email to contact@owlnshow.com. We have a website, which is owlnshow.com. You can find the Twitter for the show at OWLNShow on Twitter. All of the replays of these live podcasts go to YouTube, and they're on youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. Our Discord, which is awesome, is discord.me/OWLNShow. It's a great place to hang out during the Overwatch League games. There's usually tons of people in there talking about them. And our Twitch, which you are probably watching live if you're seeing this live, is twitch.tv/OWLNShow. And we are a Twitch affiliate, and you can help support the show by subscribing to the channel, and you earn the network emoticon. And the podcast network streams regularly with Overwatch League Network. This show Mondays at 7 p.m. On Tuesdays, you've got Overwatch League by the Numbers at 6 p.m. You've got Heroes Never Die, which just celebrated the 200th episode. Another congratulations to y'all, which the Heroes Never Die airs on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. And if you want to contact any of the hosts, you can find me on Twitter at BoogerBrainz, BOOGERBRAINZZ. And then there's y'all's Twitters.
You can find my Twitter, Anira, at AniraOW on Twitter. I've been trying to post less there, but for all, I still I'll live tweet any game. So if you ever just want to see what I'm thinking when the games come up, just come check me out there. How about you, Totem?
Well, you can find me over on Twitter at TumblydrunkCTR. And I do stream normally Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays on Twitch at twitch.tv/TumblydRunk. So with that being said, guys, I want to thank you again for joining us tonight on another episode of Overwatch League Network. I hope to see you guys back tomorrow night for our next episode of OWL by the Numbers, and if not, then we will see you next week. I'm going to throw a host over to Spider, who's played Apex, see what he's up to over there, as he just died there, so that's great. Coming in at a good time on that front, but we will see you guys back next week. You guys take care, and have a good night. All right. Sending us over there.
Nice.
Yo.
Oh, I'm exhausted. All right. I think that